More moves around the NFL as Russell Wilson finds a home. It is with the New York Giants. What are they doing over there at the quarterback position in New York? Stefon Diggs, a surprisingly big deal to some with the New England Patriots, and we're talking linebackers in the NFL draft. All that coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there that hang out with us and talk ball and listen ball every day on YouTube and Spotify and Apple and whatever your podcast source is. You can find us there. So hit the thumbs up and the bells and all the things and let us know you stopped by. If you're new to the program, welcome. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you find your podcasts. And today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Giants are done, right? They got a full quarterback room. Russell Wilson signs a free agent contract, 1-year deal with the New York Giants. We'll get into the details in a second. They had already signed Jameis Winston, a 1-year, $4 million contract. And by the way, local legend, Tommy DeVito, was a restricted free agent tender, I believe. So he's back in New York. That's a full room of veteran quarterbacks. They got 3 quarterbacks. They don't even need a guy anymore, right? Are they done in New York with Russell Wilson now as the starter for the New York Giants?
I don't think so at all. I mean, you mentioned the contract. We'll get to it in a minute, but it's 10.5 guaranteed. That could get up. That could double. It could get to 21 with incentives, which sounds like a lot of scout speak or agent speak. You know that he could get there. Right. He probably has to start every game or something that's hard to
probably has to win a lot. It probably has to go
get to the playoffs.
The Giants probably want to be in 21, depending on what those. That means things went extremely well for the Giants this year. Probably like playoffs and other big things in there involved.
Yeah. Maybe Pro Bowl or something. Who knows? Yeah. I don't think they're done. I have another question for you in a minute because they've under $20 million in a quarterback room invested. I mean, that's not that much, you know. I mean, and if Tommy Cutlets prohibits you from drafting a quarterback, then something's wrong in the room, obviously, or keep 4 or something. Who knows? Trade Winston. I don't know if that prohibits you. Now, I ask you, first off, I can tell you in the last week or so, I basically found out the Steelers were out on Wilson. That was not going to be an option at any point. It's not like he was the consolation prize for Fields. I don't think he's a consolation prize for Rodgers, which I do think will happen. So I think the Steelers and the rest of the league kind of told you what they think of Wilson. That pretty shot at this point and is what he is. But I do believe that the Giants will have better quarterback play next year than this past year. I mean, kind of know where to go with Drew Lock and Tommy and those guys. And I guess my question is, do you think after signing these 2, is that sort of an admission with the 3rd overall pick that Hunter and Carter would trump any quarterback not named Ward?
Yes.
I tend to think so too.
That has to be the thing. First of all, just with the quarterbacks, I don't get the combination of Wilson and Winston.
I just think it's the only thing that was out there. Like it's a weird combination, but right.
Why both?
Right. Well, I don't think you want to go in with just one or the other. 2 seems like overkill.
That's like
assuming you're still going to draft one. Even
if you go out to lunch and you don't like your sandwich, so you order a second one. Like, what's the point, right?
It's almost like going to get a health food and then getting ice cream after or something. Like they're totally opposite too, you know? Like,
yeah.
I don't even know who the better player is at this point.
Yeah. And maybe, I mean, well, they're telling us that they expect, because Russell Wilson's got the $10 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And so just contractually, they tell us what they think about the pecking order of quarterbacks there.
Yeah, I would expect Wilson to be the week 1 starter most likely.
One quick note, and you talked about how, you kind of got the vibe that, or more than a vibe, that Russell Wilson wasn't going to be back and really wasn't the guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Was that a personality thing?
No, not at all. Total opposite of that.
Thing? Okay.
Like when they signed him, I read all this and heard all this bad stuff with Denver. I didn't see any of that. Then I was around him quite a bit, and all my Steeler people think he is a wonderful person. He's a little odd, but I mean, a lot of these guys are. And that wasn't it at all. I mean, the leadership and all that kind of stuff, the way he treated Fields, but he can't see over the middle of the field.
Yeah, he's not a good enough quarterback.
I think his stripes are painted at this point where he's not the athlete he used to be, and he can't really play the brand of football that he was once successful, and the whole world knows it, and they kind of got the book on him, and it's hard to work around that, as a play caller. No, it wasn't a personality thing. So I do think he'd be a really good mentor for Sanders or Dart or whoever, and I think that's a great role for him at this point. But I think he's more Flacco than he is Rodgers. You know what I mean? At this point of his career, you know what I mean? Like,
So it's really the Winston thing that doesn't make a lot of sense, because it makes you feel like they don't expect to add a high rookie quarterback. But
I thought Winston was super cheap too, though. Was that just too good to pass up on a deal?
I guess, or maybe their plans had to change because they thought things might have gone a different way, and then now they just realized that, look, we can't trade for number 1. Sanders is not going to be an option either because we don't like him, or because he's going to be gone at number 2. They have learned. They tried to do the Stafford thing.
That's what I'm feeling too.
Things struck out. So just wishing and hoping at this point, like. That's the only thing that makes sense, because I don't really understand the combination of Winston Wilson.
Really. What trying to get in their head, what this told me, and maybe I'm fabricating it to some degree, is one of two things with the draft. Well, first of all, I don't think Ward is a possibility. Done. He's a Titan. I mean,
he's number 1.
That's over.
Everything is telling us that right now.
So I think either they think Sanders is definitely going to, which is possible. I think that's very possible. Or they just believe we have such a higher grade on Carter and Hunter than any quarterback. We're going to be thrilled to take one of those 2 at 3 and just take the best player on the board. Maybe trade Thibodeau. Who knows? Whatever. Do whatever you do. I mean, and then you scramble for, can we get back in the first round for Dart? Or are we comfortable with a Shuck or Dart at the top of the second round? And if you don't get them, well, we got Winston and Wilson, and ownership understands, and maybe we get fired, maybe we don't,
I mean, my whole thing, just going back, is why you can't start the offseason on the hot seat like this. You can't.
Well, I think it's bad process from the beginning, without question.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as the draft, like essentially what we're learning right now is that Ward is going 1 to the Titans, and the Giants maybe had tried to trade up, and maybe that was part of it, and they couldn't get that done. So they're like, well, we got to have another quarterback.
Yeah. And I think it'd be utterly insane to take Sanders over Hunter. Like, they're not even on the same tiers for me in grades. Like, not even close. Yeah.
Hunter Carter over Sanders. And so they're either telling us that they think so Sanders is out at 3 because he's either gone at 2 or because they don't care and they would draft a different guy.
Not graded high enough. Right. Yeah. I think Sanders will not be a Giant. If he falls to 19, would they trade next year's first for him?
So and maybe that's part of it, because I still do not buy everyone's scrambling to go get Jackson Dart. Like, I don't buy it. And we'll see if it happens. But remember, a few years ago at this time, we were seeing mock drafts with Aiden Hutchinson going number 1 and Malik Willis going number 2 in March. Like, not, in March and April, we were seeing those mock drafts. And it ended up being that the Detroit Lions, instead of drafting Malik Willis, actually got Aiden Hutchinson at 2, because since that point of those mock drafts, we realized that Trayvon Walker ended up going number 1. And then Malik Willis ended up being a 3rd round draft pick. So, I think people do get a little crazy with the quarterback stuff, and you have to, you're getting married when you draft a quarterback in the 1st round. And so I just don't think the teams are going to be that willing to put a ring on the finger of some of these guys if they don't really fully believe in it. And that's why the Titans are doing what they're doing at 1, because they believe in their guy, and they're going to draft their guy at number 1 in Cam Ward. And it sounds like the Giants
will take Carter or Hunter.
Yeah. And so that's that. And maybe they trade up for Sanders at the end of round 1. I could see that.
Yeah.
This is telling me that they're not even super worried about quarterback, period. Like, they're like, okay, well, the quarterback thing wasn't going to work out. We tried a lot of avenues. Mm-hmm. We're going to draft the best players now, maybe even trade down, who knows, from 3, but that's the best way to play it, which is smart, which is good. They didn't do anything really insane and crazy at quarterback. Set him back, that set the franchise back, which is why I would say, trade the GM, because he could do something crazy. He doesn't care about future draft picks. And then maybe
Sanders instead of Hunter, I would lose my mind. Like, they're not even close with it. That's just bad business.
And then maybe you trade up for Sanders if he's the one that slips. But I could even
see a small trade up for Dart. I would understand. It's not what I would do. Dart, I mean, I don't mean to bring this back to the Steelers, but there are Steeler ramifications with Rodgers now. I mean, the musical chairs seem like they're lining up. But every mock I see the last couple of weeks has the Steelers taking Dart at 21, and I would not be cool with that at all. I just think people are putting him in the 1st round because they want to put him in the 1st round, And
there's teams that have obvious quarterback needs. And just like the Giants with Russell Wilson, the Steelers shouldn't be done at quarterback. But what it does is it makes you feel like, okay, we don't have to scramble and do anything crazy. We have a starting quarterback in week 1, even if we don't love it, and then we'll see what else happens in the draft.
I mean, I really think the Steelers' 1st round pick next year will be a quarterback. Like, they just picked up another comp pick for Russell Wilson signing. Like, they have all these comp picks like crazy. And I think Rodgers will be here a year or 2, and they'll try to get their guy in the top 10 next year if they have to trade the farm to do it,
Yeah,
and that's fine with me.
If things go great, you're in the playoffs. If things go terrible, now you got a higher pick, and then you draft the quarterback next year in a better.
And I think Rodgers is actually a better player than Wilson or Fields, probably, maybe. Maybe it goes well. You win games.
All right, that's the New York Giants. Let's talk New England Patriots. What are they doing in the draft? They're telling us maybe their plans a little bit. Stefon Diggs is going to New England on a 3-year, $69 million contract, and we'll talk about some linebackers in the NFL draft as well. And I got a pro day nugget that I want to drop on you.
Ooh, okay.
And we'll get to that next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Imagine watching your favorite team play live. You feel that energy, right? The crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like that experience of a big game in person, whether it's college hoops or Major League Baseball, which is getting going now. And I love baseball season. NFL draft, obviously. The NFL, it's not game time season, it's draft season. But maybe you get excited about that quarterback that your team drafts, and you say, man, I got to get me some tickets to go see this guy play and lead my team out of the tunnel. Game Time is the place for tickets, and getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. It should be fun. That's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats to unbeatable prices for all of your favorite events. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all of those events, and some fantastic deals and the lowest price guarantee on those deals. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference with views from your seat before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. And again, those last-minute spectacular deals. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So the New England Patriots adding a wide receiver, kind of an oddball wide receiver group that the Patriots have put together. Obviously, it's a new regime now in New England making decisions there. And they might have had to pay a little bit of an extra price to make sure they got a guy that could potentially be, the veteran number 1 option for young quarterback Drake May. And coming off a torn ACL, by the way, Stefon Diggs got a 3-year, $69 million contract from the New England Patriots. And I was a little bit surprised when I saw that number. Now, that's the number that's been reported by, that was thrown out there by Adam Schefter. And he even drops this entertainment group in his tweet about it. So that's the number that comes from the
thing, by the way.
Yeah.
That's the new thing with the tweets this year is let's mention the agent's name too, you know?
Yeah, congratulations, Adisa Bakari, for putting that deal together, which also tells me that maybe there's some fluffy numbers in there, and maybe it's not quite a 3-year, $69 million contract, or it could be something much different, because that just seems like a lot for what we've seen from Stefon Diggs in the most recent version of him coming off a torn ACL as well.
Mm-hmm. So I had a really good conversation just an hour ago with Marcus Mosher on Locked On Dynasty. We focused on Diggs, and we talked about what else could happen and, draft stuff, even brought up Ayuk. I mentioned your name, that I don't think that they're close to being done. But Marcus had a couple notes I thought were really interesting. Is he did more homework on it than I did. And it sounds like best bet is Diggs will be ready at some point during training camp and definitely will be ready for week 1. I wasn't 100% certain of that. Like, I don't think we'll see a lot of preseason reps from him, but who cares? At his age. And then Marcus mentioned kind of a fantasy note. Like, would any of us be shocked if he's like, it's week 6 and he has more targets than just about any receiver in the league? In that situation, like he's the 12 target a week guy. I'm like, I could see it. I could paint that picture.
And plus, coming off the ACL and where he'll start in like fantasy rankings, he's going to have to climb through the rankings. So he'll probably be pretty far down there. But you would be betting that he would come back. And it's not, you always hear that this time of year, on track to start week 1. And then November rolls around. It's like, okay, here he comes finally,
And he's not young.
And you mentioned Ayuk. Ayuk tore his ACL. He had a little bit of extra. There was an MCL involved as well with Ayuk, but I think those were a week apart. So the date for Ayuk has always been, I think, basically early October. You might miss September, but also he's, the reports are good. He's ahead of schedule and he might be ready for week 1 as well. So like, that's kind of the reports we always hear. You're going to have to really dive back into those and see how you feel about the health of these guys as it gets closer to the season. But clearly the Patriots thought he was close enough and they just needed to do something, which also tells me it's like it's not going to be probably Ted McMillan. I think these teams these late signings are kind of telling us about what's going on with the NFL draft. Does that mean they're really locking in on an offensive lineman potentially at pick 4, or maybe is it going to be a Hunter style wide receiver where he might need a little bit more time, and would that really preclude you from drafting a wide receiver at number 4? I don't know, but it feels like offensive line is probably the direction that the New England Patriots are going to go there in the draft.
That's what I was going to say too, is again, this is kind of a dynasty fantasy thing, is we really want Hunter to fall to the Patriots, because I think that would be the team that says you're a wide receiver first that also plays corner, because just for production. But I think worst case scenario for New England is Membo and Egbuka in the 2nd round. Okay. It's solid. Burden or, somebody like that.
The one thing I do like about Diggs, and the one thing I would like about a 1st-round wide receiver for them, is the thing they absolutely don't need is another mediocre day 2 wide receiver. You know what I mean?
Like, we were talking about like Polk and Baker too. Like they were so bad.
And like the Baker pick was fine, but the Polk one, especially compared to some other, late 1, early 2 receivers, you might feel like, they kind of forced that one because they really needed to draft a receiver. Doesn't feel like a big hit, but who knows? Year 2, we could see a jump from someone like Polk. Baker was a 4th-round pick, so if he doesn't turn out to be much, that's okay. But you need a difference-making player, and Stefon Diggs has been that. Is he still that? Really is the question there for New England, and still a lot of work to do with that Patriots team. They needed a veteran, so I'm actually
I like the signing a lot,
and I have a feeling that contract is going to look a little bit different than that original Schefter tweet too.
100%, and please don't forget, Patriot fans, you guys still have so much cap space that maybe it's after the draft they could trade for an Ayuk. It wouldn't be Tyreek Hill somebody. There's always a receiver at the deadline that you can get or whatever. You bring that up all the time. You can never get the tackle, but you can find a receiver that's kind of expensive.
Could Will Campbell be the pick at 4? He was an early top 4 draft pick, mock draft player at LSU's Pro Day this morning, man. Will Campbell reportedly stepped up, got his arms measured, and it grew a little bit. 33 inches. 33-inch arm length, which is the minimum for offensive tackles for most teams in the NFL. Still, they would like 34-inch arm length, but he went from 32 5/8 at the combine to 33 at the pro day. What do you trust less, arm length measurements or 40 times from pro days, man?
Or hand measurements?
Yeah,
it's the other one. And Milrose went more than half an inch too.
Well, Milrose went from the Senior Bowl. Like, that's what's funny.
Senior Bowl to combine, right?
And obviously we know that these hands and arms aren't growing. So what's happening is there's a massive inconsistency of who's doing the measuring, and the NFL's got to figure that out. And teams are probably scratching their heads because that's a pretty important half an inch for an NFL franchise.
It is right.
What they're gonna get in Will Campbell, whether or not he's a guard or a tackle for you in the NFL, and potentially could be the difference in being the fourth pick in the draft or not.
I know he's Niner relevant. He might even be Patriot relevant, anywhere from 4 to 12 or something like that, I think is his landing spot. I think you have to bring him in for a visit. I mean, you get 30 of them, do it yourself, It doesn't sound like we're fighting over something very minuscule, but it matters. I mean, under 33, there are no exceptions really in the history of the league of tackles that do well,
Especially with the inconsistencies. It's like, sorry, Will. We already like you. We didn't have to talk to you. We just got to measure your arms. All right. Get back on the phone.
Right. We'll take you to lunch. We'll hang out. We can talk scheme and all that stuff. But you're going to be one of our 30 visits because we're picking in that range, one of those 6 or 8 picks. And I want to know the answer. I want our guys to do it.
He's going to knock those meetings out of the park too. Like hearing like he speaks like a 10-year veteran about football and about blocking, about what he's doing. So teams are going to love him for that. And teams are going to be like, please get to 33 so I can draft.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think everyone's rooting. I mean, everyone's on the same page. I hope it's 33 and a half when you get here. I hope they keep growing.
Whatever you're doing, like getting your arms yanked on and like inversion boards, whatever it is that you're doing to try to get that arm longer. Yeah.
Yeah. By year 2, you'll be 34. Let's go,
Let's talk NFL draft. We've done offensive linemen already. We've done defensive linemen. Let's talk linebackers, second level defenders on defense. It's not the best class of linebackers. Williamson's top 5 and some other honorable mentions and an interesting group of potentially later draft picks that could be good football players in a position that's growing in value, and scarcity is actually starting to change at this position in the NFL, which makes me rethink the linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
Get into that one next. And as always, these top 5s, Matt Williamson has the write-ups at Steelers.com, so you can go get his his breakdown of why and who he has where in these rankings. Let's start with the top at linebacker. Who's your number 1 linebacker in this class, and why is it Jihad Campbell?
So a couple little nuggets here. I'll be full transparency. I would say this is the position group that I feel the least strongest about my convictions, and I've done the least homework on. And I also think something you kind of mentioned too, that I think the league didn't exactly give this group glowing endorsements either, because there was a bevy of off-the-ball linebackers right before free agency opened that their existing team just settled up with them and we'll just keep our guy. I'm not going fishing here. And I do think the linebacker position is really interesting overall. I mean, there aren't many difference makers. The Warners obviously is the top of the list, but man, if you have one, I don't know. I think they're worth their weight in gold. And I do think counting on rookie production at linebacker has proven time and time again to be a foolhardy approach because these guys get manipulated and the game's so different. But to me, Jihad Campbell's far and away number 1. And maybe he is Devin White and more sizzle than he is, steak and eggs, guy you can really count on. But there's a lot of sizzle here. I think he's the only first-round guy at this position. Maybe the only top 50 guy at this position.
I'm with you on that with Jihad Campbell. He just checks a lot of boxes for you. He can do a lot. The one thing that you worry about is like, okay, is he just naturally instinctive run and hit linebacker? Is he going to be that level of player? But what makes you feel better, which is why he is the top linebacker in this class and why a team's going to draft him in the first round most likely, is because he can cover. And that's the big difference with linebackers. And there's fast linebackers that still can't cover. And even those guys that are former safeties that become linebackers, well, why did they change from safety to linebacker? Because they weren't that good at covering as a safety. So it's like, those guys aren't, even though they've done coverage in their life, doesn't mean they're good at it either. And, you get all bulked up and bigger as a former safety and you can't move as well anyway. So Jihad Campbell can cover and he can rush the passer. And so
he makes big plays.
Natural pass rush moves from him as well. So with the way the NFL,
I don't know that he's much different from Walker from Georgia, the edge player.
Right. They're very similar size.
I
don't think we have a 40 time yet from Jalen Walker, but we do for Jihad Campbell. 6'3", 235, big hands, 32-inch arms. He's got a 4.5, 240 at the combine, 1.53 10-yard split, which is really good, 10.7 broad jump. So, athleticism, height, weight, speed. He can cover. He can rush the passer. And he's a specimen, and he's going to be the first linebacker off the board.
Yep. But I mentioned Devin White because the almost every mistake of an early round linebacker is we're going to take the athlete. I'm not sure about the instinct and read and react stuff. It's like, okay. I mean, it's worth the high upside, but usually if there's a bust from an overdrafting, that's usually why.
If linebacker 1 is easy, then who's linebacker 2?
Linebacker 2 is also easy for me too. Okay. Kind of the opposite, where Carson Schlesinger from UCLA has enough athleticism, really good vertical jump, things like that. I mean, he's not the same level as Campbell, but he's really quick to diagnose, doesn't waste a lot of steps and all that stuff. Good size. I think he's a high quality player.
I mean, he's the classic. He was a walk-on.
Mm-hmm.
Gains 30 pounds and just keeps getting better and better and better and better. And now you got a 6'2.5", 240-pound linebacker with a 39.5-inch vertical. We didn't get a combine 40 time from Carson Schlesinger, which probably tells me he's not going to run a blazing 40 time. But if you're looking for more of an instinctive linebacker, that lunch pail guy, Carson Schlesinger is your man. And man, he's worked himself into a NFL athlete, 6'2.5", 242 pounds for Carson Schlesinger. He's going to put in the work, that's for sure.
And taking it a step further, my number 3 guy, Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma, is the real throwback guy. I mean, he ran well to combine, but he's bad in coverage. Like, he's not going to be out there and dime. But, man, he is a big-bodied throwback, physical, makes a ton of plays. Like, the 1970s and 80s would have loved him. It'd have been a first-round pick. You know what I mean? 6'3", downhill thumper, that style.
Yeah, threw down a 4.5 too. So he's your run and hit guy, right? Out of Oklahoma. Seems like that's a good school for a throwback linebacker too. Mm-hmm. Danny Stutzman, 6'3", 233, and the 4.5 240-yard dash. And interesting player there. And that's kind of where we get with these next group of guys, because there's some athletes, there's some instinctive guys, there's some undersized players. But there's just like kind of some warts with all of them. Demetrius Knight is a guy that I think is sneaky that could become potentially the number 2 linebacker in this class, 6'1.5", 235. You've got him here at number 4. Big hands, long arms, 4.58, 40-yard dash, and nice 3-cone, nice shuttle, 22 bench press reps. He did everything in the combine, which is good. And by the way, related to, because this is something that and I couldn't wait to bring this up and talk to you about it, Matt, because you always talk about when there's, a position group where there's a really good, like the 49ers, it's Trent Williams and the Pips, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about potentially wherever he gets drafted, it could be Demetrius Knight and the Pips, because he's related to Gladys Knight.
Oh, is he? Yeah, love it.
There you go.
Very cool. Okay. He's all right. He's a good football player. I mean, he's very experienced. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't waste a lot. And I think he's a good athlete, not great. I didn't see a lot of explosiveness, but I would think he translates pretty well to the league.
That is number 4. Let's round up the top 5 in your rankings. Number 5.
Chris Paul, Ole Miss. Boy, Ole Miss has a lot of dudes. I think they spent a lot of money.
I was going to say, how much NIL did they spend? Because that was the best team money can buy. And every time you go through these prospects, you're like, well, you got to go back and watch his Houston tape. I was like, oh, okay, transferred too. Oh, this guy transferred. Oh, wow, this guy transferred. They were all transferred.
I look at Paul like he's just like a 4-3 will linebacker back when you used to see 4-3 stack a lot. The run and hit guy that you cover up. Only 222 pounds. He even looked a little smaller than that to me watching him. But he's involved. He flies around a lot. He obviously was surrounded by a lot of good football players, but he's not taking on blocks or, playing big.
I see him in a lot of mid-round mock drafts to the 49ers after losing Drake Greenlaw. That style of player, kind of understand as weak side linebacker, was exactly what Drake Greenlaw was for the 49ers.
I can see that fit for sure.
Honorable mentions. Who just missed your top 5? Any mid-round guys? Any sleepers you like at the linebacker position in this draft now?
Again, I'm pretty bad at this compared to the other positions. There weren't a lot of names where I was like, ooh, that guy's exciting. I know there's some buzz about Jeffrey Bossa from Oregon. I think he's kind of intriguing. Jack Kaiser from Notre Dame's another one of these throwback dudes. Cody Lindenberg from Minnesota has that feel to him. I did a little write-up on Shamar James from Florida, too. I think he's an intriguing mid-round guy, big-time recruit, but he had some injury stuff, too, and he kind of showed up a little bit to me in the postseason process. But overall, I don't have a lot at this position that stands out to me, to be honest with you.
The other thing that's hard is and I'm just looking at the grid right now of the combine. Mm-hmm. They're all the exact same size.
I'd say there's not a lot of standouts, right? Yeah.
6'1", 230. Every single one of them, it feels like. But yeah, you mentioned Jeffrey Bossa ran a 4.6 at 6'1", 232 pounds, former safety, 38.5-inch vertical. So a nice workout for him. Nick Martin's an interesting one to me. Talk about will linebackers, undersized that you got to cover up, but he plays bigger, 5'11.5", 221. He ran 4.53, which you better run fast if you're going to be an undersized linebacker. 38-inch vertical, 154, 10-yard split. So that was really good. You had Eugene Asante out of Auburn who ran 4.48 at the combine. You got some athletes out there. I just don't know how many instinctive players you have. Mondon Jr. from Georgia, 6'2", 224, ran a 4.58. So a lot of guys ran in the 4.5s and are that kind of slim linebacker, which is a modern day thing. But how many of them are like, oh, this guy is dialed in? Because it's still a neck up position and an instinctive position in the NFL.
This class screams. A lot of those names we just mentioned in the last 5 minutes to me look like 4th and 5th round picks that'll be awesome special teamers that are the third linebacker, and 1 or 2 of them will turn into a starter.
A deep sleeper here. A couple of them. Teddy Buchanan from Cal, 6'2", 233. Dude is rocked up. He looks the part. Ran a 4.6 flat at the combine, 40-inch vertical. So you can kind of dare to dream with him in the later rounds. And David Benga is another undersized will linebacker that's worked his way into playing time at Texas. And man, he plays physical for his size. A player I like a lot. He might be a late round pick. Who knows? Maybe even undrafted, but there might be some gems. And so if you want a linebacker in this class, maybe draft a couple late and not draft any early.
Yeah, I don't dislike that. Have 2 of them, 2 dogs, 1 bone, and see how that goes late in the draft.
And by the way, Jalen Walker, is he even a linebacker? Because we didn't talk about him. And he's built more like a linebacker, but plays more like an edge rusher. There's so many. This draft is going to be insane. We talked about the arm length for Will Campbell. How do teams view him? Tackle, guard? Does that make him slip? After the first 3 picks, essentially 4 picks, maybe. This thing could go any way. Literally anybody could go from pick 5 to 25, just about.
There really is a lot of gray area, even early in the draft. Yeah.
Which is going to make it a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll definitely be fun. Right.
Yeah. And so stay tuned here to Peacock and Williamson. We got you covered every step of the way through the NFL draft. We are going to start recording that Locked On Podcast Network NFL Draft Special as well, which is a whole lot of fun. So I can't wait to see how my colleagues look at this draft and draft for all of their teams. And we're going to draft for every single team in the first round. And if your team doesn't end up with the first round pick, although every team does right now, there might be some trades, though, that trade out, and we'll see who the first picks are for the teams that end up not having a first round pick. And so stay tuned for that. And of course, subscribe here on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.